Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 57 today for the Bahrain Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous episode at the Brazilian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because that was the first time in this new V8 hybrid era that we went to a sprint race, and what a sprint race weekend it was. The sprint itself with a bit of rain and jeopardy, and a 300 IQ strategy play from ourselves to then go on and get pole position as it was for the main Grand Prix. Sunday went a little bit differently. Lando Norris showed McLaren have some real solid race pace. We tried our best, and right at the end, things went a little bit wrong in the fuel department for our team, but it wasn't plain sailing for a couple of drivers all around the field. Sebastian Vettel with an engine failure. There were some big winners though. Carlos Sainz came through and recovered from what was, I think, like P16 or 15 on the grid to get some very solid points. So I was very happy about that, to see our new teammate get off the mark properly and actually make a bit of a stamp. And obviously we had some fiery encounters with Max Verstappen, as did he with his new but old teammate Sergio Perez at their new team Renault. So yeah, a very interesting round number 2, and now we're going to round 3 at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Speaking about that new custom order of this calendar, here is just a reminder of the Season 4 calendar. I'll be bringing this in at the start of every episode from now on, just to remind you guys of the new custom calendar we do have for this season on this game. So we're going to Bahrain, then we really kick things off with the proper European portion of the season, from Portugal all the way to those 2 Italian Grand Prix races at Monza and Imola. It's going to be a pretty exciting last couple of races then after that. But yeah, we head to Bahrain then for the first time this season for round 3. But off the back of that Brazilian Grand Prix, we receive an extra 400 R&D points for issues with our powertrain, as we had another ERS little niggle during the race. We now have a couple upgrades hopefully coming in. I say hopefully because 2 of them failed. So 2 out of the 3 air upgrades we purchased have failed. So that's pretty frustrating, to be honest, because our drag reduction came in, but 2 of the downforce upgrades did not come in, and we have to repurchase them and spend more R&D points on them. And then the 2 engine upgrades we had both failed. So that's in total 5 upgrades purchased on the aero and the powertrain combined, and 4 of them failed. How unlucky can you get? That is so unfortunate as we try and scramble back this performance, especially on the aero side. I really needed those upgrades to come in, so that's a bit frustrating. We repurchase the aero upgrades. They will come in time for this race ahead of Bahrain, but I couldn't then go ahead and spend more R&D because my capacity was reached, basically, because I purchased another upgrade, basically. So as it stands, we have 2 repurchased aero upgrades pending before this Grand Prix, a new aero upgrade, and then the 2 engine ones that I had to repurchase, and also durability, the one that's still coming in. So we go through the activity timeline. Hopefully, obviously, the repurchased ones have to come in, and they do. We're still waiting on that brand new upgrade I bought as well, but we did have a few more R&D points to play around with, so I was looking at then the next front downforce upgrade, and I was very tempted to try and risk it to get it done ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Obviously, the 2 power unit upgrades then came in, so that we had to buy twice effectively. Again, was, you know, toying with the fact of risking maybe a purchase of a rushed upgrade to try and get it in for Bahrain. I mean, on the engine side of things, maybe I could have gone without it, because we are still on the top 3 of the power units, and we're very equally matched to the other 2 teams, but I was, you know, I'm still, you know, hurting a little bit from last season into this one. Desperate to be higher up in the R&D chart. Desperate to actually have a car on paper that is going to be there to give us the performance, rather than just relying on, you know, that closeness of the grid and our own kind of ability to get us up there. So desperate times, and we do 2 rushed upgrade purchases there on the drag reduction side of things, the power unit, and then 1 final purchase focus on an air upgrade, another minor drag reduction update. This one I thought better and just thought, okay, I'll just go for the standard one because we've already got other ones we're risking. Let's just get this one that will hopefully definitely come in after this episode in time for the next race at Portimao. So, yeah, a few upgrades up in the air, and that, again, we're hoping come in. Unfortunately, I don't get that lucky, and, well, we risked it, and we got burnt. We have to repurchase those upgrades. I can't even afford to repurchase one of them on the side pod profile. So, yeah, it's safe to say we got a bit burnt in terms of the R&D upgrades we tried to get this episode. And so, to combat that, I actually finally bit the bullet. I probably should have done this ages ago and bought some quality control upgrades on the HQ facilities. Obviously, the reason why I never have purchased those upgrades before is because, remember, we went bankrupt in Season 3. So I did not have the money up until now, this season, to actually make these purchases. This is the first time we've had a huge amount of funding at the start of a season since we began, obviously. So we could finally buy those. And I also went for the unlimited upgrades on the aero department. So now I can make as many simultaneous upgrades as possible. So that will hopefully really kickstart our upgrading. To say all of that, I sound quite negative. The upgrades we did have that did come in for Bahrain on time are actually quite positive. It climbs us above the Audi Works team now, along with Renault, who follow us through. And we're very close with Mercedes. And obviously this is all in the context of, as I've said many times from Season 3, this R&D chart is so zoomed in. So this is even closer than it looks really in reality if you compared it to like Season 1 and Season 2 scaling, where you'd be saying, oh, all of us are on top of each other in terms of the pixels available on the graph. So actually, even though, you know, it was frustrating to have all those failures come in on R&D, we had some upgrades come in, and that is going to be a positive step forward in the aero department and also the engine department as well, in terms of helping out with the ERS and the fuel and pure engine power. And the aero will get there. You know, we can compromise a bit by running higher wings and trying to find some aero and, you know, some setup performance that way, try and combat that, but obviously still going to wait on those upgrades to come in then for the next one at Portimao. But that leaves us then getting on into business for qualifying here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Not the season opener this season, but round number 3. We already kind of know a little bit about the pecking order at this point in the season. It's not a stab into the unknown, but at the same time, there's still some patterns to try and shake out, you know. We did see a glimpse of McLaren looking very, very strong. Red Bull, again, looks strong, but they're not getting it all together. And then it's very interesting to see Mercedes lacking a bit of pace here in Q1. The same for the Works Audi team as well, so gonna have to see where they stand, along with Andretti Honda looking very quick, I must say, in this first part of qualifying. So let's see how that goes into Q2. On the outlap, our teammate Sainz ahead of us, but he's going to slow up and actually let us by, so we're going to have a bit of clean air here. Remember, due to the tyre allocation changes, you only have now one set of soft tyres per session, pretty much in most circuits. So this is the one and only flying lap that we've got based on a new set of soft tyres at the end of this session. So a lot of people have already set a time, maybe on a worn set, or they've already used their new set. So I don't know how much they're going to improve, but we're hoping to try and get ourselves up into the top 10. I believe Sainz is already in there, but he's going for another flyer behind us. But we lose the back end in Sector 2, and Sainz comes crashing into us along with our old teammate Felipe Drogovic in the Repsol Haas. It's a disaster for us in qualifying. We've taken out Carlos as well from qualifying, so whether he makes it into the top 10 or not, that won't matter because he's out of Saturday, because he's crashed with us. We've done the one cardinal sin. We've crashed with our teammate, not intentionally, but it's just unfortunate. Lost the back end, tried to catch it, and Sainz was too close to me, ironically, behind on his flying lap, that he just went straight into me. And so that is a devastating way to end qualifying in the third round here. Just a simple mistake. You know, the car got upset a little bit. I tried to catch it a bit, but because you're going so quick through that section, just snapped at me, and the car went round. And then, well, that would have been fine, but Sainz was so near to me, just took himself out. We somehow actually managed to keep every tyre on our car. Won't matter though, because the checkered flag fell, and so we're out. But you can see Sainz actually set a time that was like up in P4 or 5 in Q2, so he would have made it through into Q3, but because he crashed out, he is now out completely of Saturday. So there's only 9 people in the top 10 shootout, basically, with both Audi Sports, Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren's making it through. 1 Renault of Verstappen, and we are going to start this race down in P16. Let's go to the grid and find out how the top 10 shootout went.
The stage is set for another enthralling race here in the Kingdom of Bahrain. A Ferrari stronghold in years gone by. Will they be able to add to their record today? We go racing today around the 3.36 miles of the magnificent Bahrain International Circuit, with 15 corners and 2 good passing opportunities into turns 1 and 4. Keep an eye out for drivers locking the front left tyre into the tricky braking zone of turn 10. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Pierre Gasly lines up on pole position and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Albon, Verstappen, Charles Leclerc and Russell, Tsunoda, Bottas, Vettel and Carlos Sainz, Perez, Mick Schumacher, Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso. The owner driver, Ocon, Robert Schwartzman and Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, Teo Pourchaire and Felipe Drugovich. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And joining me for today's race once again is Anthony Davidson. Can I get your take on Haas? We have a number of changes to the aerodynamic regulations this year, and the signs haven't looked good for them so far in terms of getting to grips with those changes.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs. But this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
So in that top 10, which was a top 9 really shootout, McLaren looking ominously quick with a front row lockout. Red Bull behind them with Albon. Tsunoda with a bit of a mistake, I guess, and a bit further back than his teammate. But it may, you know, at least at this portion of the season, off the back of how Lando won Brazil so emphatically, that's a bit worrying maybe for the rest of us in terms of rivaling McLaren, but we're going to have to see how the race pace is like here at Bahrain. Historically, tyre wear can be a massive factor. Traffic as well, if you make an early pit stop, and going long also can be you know, either a detriment or a great way to go. So it's going to be interesting, and I hope it's a close race still. But McLaren front row lockout, we're all the way back in P15, so long way to go to try and get anywhere near them, let alone some points as well. It's going to be very close in the first few corners, just about trying to keep our nose clean, I guess, and see where we go from there. Again, we're opting for the medium tyre along with a few others, and then you've got a few opting for the soft tyre. So it's a pattern forming that there's a good mix of people choosing soft or medium, and it's going either way of it, you know, which one's the better way to go. So I hope we're on the right side of the grid in terms of choosing mediums today. We're going to have to just find out. So here we go then to 5 red lights. We're at number 3 this season for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go. Alonso's going to get a better one than us on the soft compound tyre. The same for Ocon, but we're going to try and cover him off into turn 1. It's going to be a bit of a close affair, and we want to keep our nose clean. A bit of contact made ahead for potentially, I think that was our teammate. It's 4 abreast into turn 1 as Magnussen and Ocon come together a little bit. Magnussen hopping the curb as we try and get the best of Fernando Alonso. It's another bit of a slow getaway for us this season still really not sussed out how to get this new car off the line as quick as our competitors, but we dive down the inside to get up into at least P15 ahead of Magnussen in the Porsche Williams and Alonso in the Andretti Autosport Honda. Albon, though, leads the way from Gasly, and Tsunoda and P3 ahead of Lando Norris. So Red Bull with electric start, and McLaren don't make the most of their front row lockout as we're now looking to overtake the other Porsche of Ocon. It's Porsche versus Audi for the first time properly here in Formula 1 in this alternate F1 universe. Both Porsches, because Magnussen's round the outside. We're going to duck out of this, and both Porsche Williams cars come together, and I'm so glad. I am so glad we dabbed the brakes early there. I could see that from a mile off, and that's the experience on this game coming into play a little bit. The experience of a driver after 4 seasons backing out of that and just surviving the opening lap. But let's take a look at a replay. On board with Sainz, he actually got a good getaway, then got kind of caught up in some dirty air into turn 1, and then he broke his front wing, or a bit of his front wing at least. Got sandwiched in, but he broke it on one of the Audi Works cars. So that's a little bit awkward, kind of like, you know, if AlphaTauri broke their car on one of the Red Bull cars, but obviously the kind of the non-Works team came off the worst that time. This was the start from Tsunoda, making 1, 2, 3 overtakes into turn 1. What an electric start from Tsunoda. And then Albon as well got a good getaway. Gasly made the mistake of covering off the inside, defending his teammate too much, and that just invited Albon through round the outside at turn 1, so that's how he got into the lead. And then Tsunoda with a good dive on the inside of Lando Norris. They continue to squabble and scrap all the way through the next right and left, the place where we span on Saturday, but Yuki keeps his foot in, and so that's how it's a checkerboard of Red Bull and McLaren now as we go on to lap 4. And since we got past the 2 Porsche Williams, we've been in clean air, and that's allowed us to set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix despite setting no purple sectors. And we're going to dive down the inside of Liam Lawson whilst Russell gets squeezed out by Sebastian Vettel. We overtake the Andretti, are up into P11, and ahead we just saw Vettel squeeze out Russell. That slowed him up, and so we actually are going to close up within just about a second of Russell, and we'll be able to get DRS off him on the next lap. But we may not need DRS because we actually close up just before the last corner, make him go defensive. We're going to take the last corner nice and easy. Got a bit too much curb though on the inside, so that slowed us down a little bit, but it won't matter. Finally now, with DRS aided, both of us, the rear wing opens, but we're going to use a bit of ERS to boost through. Russell gives us a squeeze to the inside, but we remain firm to the inside at turn 1. Go a bit deep on purpose to squeeze him out. Russell tries to switch back to try and get around the outside, and it really actually nearly works there, as his nose was very, very close to our right rear, but we remain firm and stay in P10, and so now we're into the championship points for the first time, but it's taken 5 laps to do so, and already there's a bit of a gap then to the guys up there fighting for a podium, the McLarens and the Red Bulls. But now we're having a go at our old teammate Sebastian Vettel, the reigning 5-time world champion now, is it, in Formula 1. Can we get one over him? It was so difficult to race and beat him last season in equal machinery. Now it's 2 different kind of Audi cars fighting. Vettel, though, showing his reinvigorated talent, defending well on the inside, and we make a mistake with the oversteer kicking, and need to be careful of that, because of course that kind of mistake, getting the rear end stepping out, that's the exact thing that got me in the position that I started this race in. And Vettel is pulling out all the tricks of the trade to try and keep me behind. Defensive in the final corner. We're around the outside though. We've got the better exit. We shoot past him up into P9. We'll have DRS that we got on the detection point, but Vettel himself got DRS because he was actually 1 second behind Sergio Perez as we entered that detection point, and so he comes back at us on the inside. We give him a squeeze, but he's already made the move. Can we keep this through though? Through turn 2, Vettel in the mirrors on the right hand side just gets squeezed out, but he's going to come back at us again. The Audi Works car really strong on the engine side side of things, as well as our car, so very equally matched, and Vettel trying to go the long way round, doesn't work out this time, and we remain in that new position of P9, but we've not got DRS now. Perez, he's too far ahead, and so we're a sitting duck. We squeeze Vettel to the wall, but he's going to get ahead of us even before we get to the brake zone, but we try and set ourselves up for maybe a re-overtake in turn 2, because Vettel actually compromises his own line by going too defensive into turn 1. We're going to be side by side by the next DRS activation point. We have DRS this time for this first zone of the new lap 9, and that will just allow us to get through on the outside. Russell joins the party and will annoy Vettel to no end here. That's going to help us out a little bit, getting away from him and getting a bit of breathing room as the two now jockey for position. Vettel with a dive back down the inside of Russell. Literally nothing between them. Russell just getting ahead. Can Vettel get anything into the next left-hander? Going to be difficult because that corner is so difficult to break with just yourself, let alone trying to go side by side, and he thinks better of it, so he remains down in P11. After winning the first race of this season, it seems Vettel's struggling a little bit for outright pace, surprisingly, compared to Bottas now, who's up in P7. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, Gasly pressurizing Alexander Albon for P1. Is there going to be a swap? Gasly lost the first place off lap 1 at turn 1. Is it time for a revenge? Meanwhile, speaking of Bottas, he's making moves on Lando Norris, who's really fallen down the order. He was down to P4 after lap 1, and he's actually been overtaken subsequently by Leclerc and Verstappen, as there goes his teammate Gasly into turn 1 and back into the lead of the Grand Prix. Albon down to P2 as it's 3 abreast nearly between Bottas, Lando Norris and Sergio Perez. So instead of Bottas actually overtaking the McLaren, he instead finds the Renault for company. So things so tight that if you're not careful enough as you're fighting one car ahead of you, there could be a car lurking behind looking to make a move. Just like this, because Perez goes from fighting Bottas to now probably being worried by the fact that I've arrived in the scene, and all this fighting is helping us close in, especially for, you know, the likes of Perez on the soft compound. You know, now lap 10, these tyres are definitely going to be worn out for the car ahead of us, and we have the better compound on our wagon. So let's try and make use of it, try and out-traction him a bit if we can, and get a move on with DRS and ERS also in play as our engineer talks about changing strategy. For now, I want to remain with the strategy of medium to soft tyre, but that may change as we go on through this race. But it's going to be a lovely move up the hill on the left-hand side there. That was the traction coming into play and the grip on the front end to get us up into P7 as we remain one of the fastest cars out on the circuit, because, you know, we're not getting held up too much in these fights. The biggest one we got caught up on was our old teammate, old pal Sebastian Vettel. So apart from that, we're making our way through nicely. And as Bottas overtakes Norris, he comes in for an earlier pit stop. He was also on softs, remember, so him and Perez come in struggling with the tyre wear, and that's going to invite us in to attack Bottas to become the lead Audi car out of the 4 of us. Of course, Sainz down the order, Vettel behind in P7, and now trying to get round the outside of Valtteri at the final corner. We out-traction him, use a bit of the battery, DRS open, but Valtteri comes back at us. We're literally neck and neck and jockeying for this position. As soon as I stop using battery, he's able to pull alongside us. We squeeze him to the right, go to the outside. We're a bit too deep into the corner, but we're going to manage to get to turns 2 apex before him. But you can really notice so far this season, as soon as we stop deploying battery, all the teams around us are right on us. So we really desperately actually probably need some more ERS upgrades to allow us to abuse the battery a bit more, because it's playing a massive factor in these new V8 hybrid engines, it would seem, this season. But we finish off the move, and Bottas gets caught up in getting pinched in at the end of sector 1 to the point where he's actually now looking behind him probably at Russell and Sebastian Vettel. We have a bit of breathing room now in P4 to just get our head down and extend this stint as Bottas now goes wide. Is he facing his own tyre struggles? Despite being on more durable mediums, is he ready to come in for a pit stop? Because he locked up there, went on the curb, Russell's through into P5, and now the 2 Audi works cars are fighting each other. Vettel on the inside, and this is an important battle because so far, you know, Vettel with the 1 victory, but Bottas displayed some great overtaking at Sao Paulo. So far, far he's been better this race, and you kind of sense a little bit that Vettel and Bottas are struggling together for who's really the de facto team leader. It's not a simple case of the reigning champ being the number one, despite having number one in his car, because Bottas is here to fight and here to stay. As Verstappen comes in, just as we caught him, he came in for his pit stop. We continue on along with Charles Leclerc in the Mercedes car, but eventually on lap 15 we'll join him to come to the pits eventually. So different spread of strategies as the two Red Bulls have gone to medium tyres, Gasly the hards, and we are also going on to the white wall hard tyres. Yes, I know, we're choosing the hards along with Leclerc just because it seems like the tyre wear is a bit harsh, and I don't trust myself and our car to be okay on the softs to the end. I couldn't extend the medium tyres any longer because we were losing a bit more time than it would have been worth it. So we're going to come out on some stone cold hard tyres, just get ahead of Lando Norris on the racing line, but he sends one to the inside and tries to overtake us, and he'll dance around the outside because we're struggling for traction right out the pit. The tyres are so bloody cold, and Norris has already warmed up his mediums. It's honestly quite a shocking difference in terms of the amount of grip it feels like I have compared to Norris. It was like driving on ice straight out of turn one, and haven't really noticed that difference that much in the previous season. I don't know, maybe the lack of aero is making that problem worse for our car, potentially. I don't know, maybe that's also kind of linked to, you know, how we get off the line of 5 red lights. Maybe just our car is not switching on the tyres as much, and it really isn't, as I'm losing 1.5 seconds to the McLaren, and Verstappen has just out-tractioned me on some warmed-up hards because he came in a little bit earlier than us. We're going to try and come back at him, though, with a wide line, cut in tight, and switch it from right to left to re-overtake him up into P6 there, so using a bit of our experience of that corner to get it back up ahead of the two Renaults, because Perez is actually right behind Verstappen, but we're going to desperately try and weave around and warm up our tyres so we can actually get a move on and then progress further in this race. Lap 17, a replay behind Verstappen, gets it all crossed up, it locks up into that corner, even more so than Bottas did earlier, and lets through 3 or 4 cars. And so now the head of that train, it's Russell, Perez, then Bottas and Sebastian Vettel. So it's a mistake from Verstappen. We saw a few of those lock-up mistakes last season in the Red Bull. Are they creeping in right now? Meanwhile, Tsunoda is the one that leads the way from Albon. Leclerc in third, but for not much longer, because Gasly's coming through. The McLarens are looking to get past the Mercedes guy, who's doing so well, to be fair to him. Leclerc maybe having the best race of his season so far in his new outfit, the Silver Arrows, but the McLarens want to get up into P3 and 4 to try and chase after their main rivals, Red Bull, and it's 3 abreast into Sector 2. That is quite a sight. What great driving from Gasly, Norris and Leclerc. Both McLarens do indeed get up into 3 and 4, and they fought so much that you can see in the background we've caught them up now, and we're there potentially to make an overtake soon. Meanwhile, behind, more fighting going on between the other Mercedes car and the 2 Audi Works cars. Russell out the head of that train, but not too much longer. Bottas sending it to the inside. He's going to take Russell wide, and Russell half spins. Oh, he makes contact maybe with Sebastian Vettel. Is there any damage to Sebastian Vettel's front wing? I don't believe so right now. Doesn't look like it, because he's actually going for a move on Russell there. But how harsh was that from Valtteri Bottas? Bottas, a new man in the Audi Works team, it seems. Yeah, killer instinct there to squeeze Russell out to the point where he span it on the curb, basically. And so Bottas up into P8. But we're back to our POV, because we're seeing this fight happen in front of our eyes. Leclerc overtakes Gasly in the same way that Vettel squeezed out Gasly in Australia. We're able to use that to overtake Pierre round the outside, and now we're closing, but not close enough to make a dive bomb on Leclerc, because I reckon he'll defend that pretty sternly to try and keep this pretty high position for Mercedes so far this season. You know, just one place off the podium, but Gasly looking a bit slower now, so maybe it could just be myself and Leclerc chasing after the pack ahead, and Gasly is a lot slower because lap 20 he's already been overtaken by Sergio Perez, and we're now watching Bottas have a go. Contact between the two of them. Bottas really being... I've never seen Valtteri this fighty. feisty ever IRL Formula 1 in the game here, as aggressive as ever. Vettel now going for the kill and looking to overtake Pierre as well. So we're seeing this so far. Last season, Gasly was the lead. McLaren, as I just noticed there, I think Vettel may have just made contact with his own teammate and broken his front wing. That's unfortunate. That's actually quite a high-profile error from the reigning champ. And now, oh, Vettel spun, no! Oh, Sebastian Vettel, what's happened? He's spanning on the curb, I think. Liam Lawson's through. Fernando Alonso's going to come through. The two Andrettis are P11 and 12. And this is a replay, so Vettel overtakes Gasly. That's fine. But then got a bit too greedy into this brake zone. There's the contact. End plate did, in fact, come off, so we got that right. And then this is the replay into this left-hander. Like where Russell span, just gets on the curb. It's actually very similar to Russell, but more of a full spin. And so Vettel spinalas on that curb. That's unfortunate. We thought we put that Vettel behind us, in the last season. But clearly still a bit of a spin is maybe there for Vettel to have. Let's hope that doesn't affect his complete focus for the rest of the season. But Vettel down the order. But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, Gasly last season was the lead McLaren. There have been so many times already now in the first 3 races where there's been glimpses of him, making mistakes, not being as solid and consistent through the races as he was in Season 3. So is Lando going to become the team leader this time round between these two younger guns? Speaking of younger guns, Yuki Tsunoda loving this lease of life in the lead of this Bahrain GP. Albon trying to stay with him. 3.7 seconds back, but that's not going to help. He's made a mistake and gone wide at the same corner. We've seen so many mistakes at the AI are making some howlers today. At the left-hander, we've had Vettel, Russell, Bottas, and now Alexander Albon, who's down to P7. We're up into P4 within just about 1 second of Leclerc. Let's go and catch him. A podium is in sight. No! We spun it now. Oh, it's all kicking off. We nearly crash into Perez. We spin it back round, but it's a spin on Saturday, a spin on Sunday, and now a huge collision with Albon, who's crashed into the back of us. And we've got a 5-second penalty for causing that collision. How is that my fault? I just spun myself round. I was trying to slowly get off the mark and not re-spin the car around. It's up to Albon to drive around me under yellow flags. Here's the replay on board with Perez. So we've already spun it. We narrowly miss him. So I'll take fault. That was a bit of a dangerous flick spin. But then here, Albon simply drives into me. Like, there's a green light just ahead of me, but technically he should have been under yellows up until then. That spin was very, very close. I nearly took Perez out, but then I was just trying my best to get the car underway, and Albon stays right. Instead, look at where that Mercedes car is. That Mercedes stayed to the left-hand side on the racing line. That's what Albon should have done, and he would have avoided me. But instead, he took a different racing line and crashed into me, took himself out of this Grand Prix, but gave me a 5-second penalty. I don't know. I mean, of course, maybe dangerous position to spin it back on circuit. Maybe ultimately that's why the stewards would give me a penalty. If it is that case, then I'll admit, okay, cool, I'll take that one. But if it's purely off the fact of where the car was, I can't control that. Albon can, though, so yeah, very weird one. But you can see now, lap 24, the safety car's out because of that incident with Albon, and we've chosen to come in, not only to serve our 5-second penalty, so I've got that out of the way, I know where I stand, but also, under this safety car, I saw on the heads-up display that if I pit onto softs, I would come out in an okay kind of position. It said theoretically P12, but because of the 5-second penalty, it's P15. But remember now, I've served my penalty. I'm now on fresh, soft tyres, because I have this set from not being in Q3, and all the cars ahead of me are either on worn mediums or worn hards, and I've got no penalty, so I know where I stand. Where I finish will be where I finish. So it's now up to me, lap 25 to 29, 4 laps of sprint racing, to go out there, drive the wheels off this car, and try and get back into some points-paying positions. maybe even where we started this whole thing in P4. Funnily enough, I'm right behind my teammate Sainz, who obviously got taken out of the whole race from turn 1, lap 1, and he's going to get taken out again because he makes contact with Schwartzman. So Sainz getting in the thick of it. I take the cautious approach and actually get overtaken by Schumacher in the Ferrari, but such is my cautious approach, it's working out for me as I now send one down the inside of Sainz and Schwartzman, get up into P13, so Sainz needs to take a leaf out of my book a little bit here and just be a little bit patient, because the positions will come as we've got a much better tyre on the car. It's a double dive bomb again on Drogovic and also Magnussen if we can get him on the exit. We know K-Mag's going to defend this well, so we actually duck out of that dab on the brakes, and we again wait patiently as Russell's off now. Russell, did you see that? He was off on the curb. So that corner really is so dangerous, and the entire circuit actually, the tyre wear levels, just the new cars, I don't know, but it's a tricky situation for everyone as Lawson takes Magnussen so wide that we do 2 overtakes in 1 so easily there on the outside, up into P10 already, so we're back into the point. So that's been a very decent opening lap, and the whole time I've played the patient game. I've not been too rash with some of these moves. I again have a bit of caution and patience here with Russell not to dive down the inside at the last corner, instead opting to try and overtake him on the straight. The battery only available as we cross the line because I used so much on the previous lap. Sainz unfortunately comes in for another pit stop in this race as we try and go around the outside of Verstappen. Russell is the one on the inside there, but Verstappen was so slow that the Renault's the one we actually overtake, and then we have to finish the move off on George the next corner, and so that's 2 positions in the sequence of 2 corners into P8, looking to get Fernando Alonso and the Andretti. He surely won't be able to fight this too much. Dive down the inside, purple second sector, using the fresh soft tyre to good use, but Fernando in a very quick Andretti car in a straight line comes back at us. We play the Wily or Fox game with the Wily or Fox. We brake early on purpose and we do the switchback to jolt him away, and we get a clean run now in P7. So that was a master stroke to braking a bit early there and kind of duping Alonso, and now we have clean air to chase after the cars ahead of Gasly, Bottas, Sergio Perez. All these cars we were ahead of course, before the spin, and now we're trying to make it back up with these soft tyres, and it's working well for us. 2 purple sectors. We're the fastest man on this circuit, obviously just due to circumstance, but we're enjoying ourselves, and I'm determined to get that Perez overtake done by the end of the race, as we now overtake Gasly, and we're entering the final lap of this Grand Prix. So this is it, 2 more positions and we're back to where we were before that spin. It looks like Leclerc will nail on for that podium in Mercedes as Bottas goes deep. He tried to overtake Perez and got squeezed out, so there's the opportunity. They slow up, and so now I feel a bit more, belief in myself that we can actually get these 2 positions. But it looks like Tsunoda will hold on to this race win just about, ahead of Lando Norris, and then Leclerc doing a fantastic job for Mercedes and his new team to get that podium. But right here, dive down the inside of the hairpin to get up into P5. 1 more position to go, only about half a lap to go of the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's been an absolute roller coaster of emotions for so many drivers. Vettel span, Bottas, Russell, Verstappen, Albon, all wide at that very corner we just went through. And around here, this is where we made our second high-profile mistake of the weekend. It's been a messy one for us, but we're trying to make up for it with these soft tyres. The safety car did help us a bit in this situation with the penalty, etc. But of course, the safety car would have come out either way because of the amount of debris around. But now, can we actually finish the job off? Perez defensive. We go from right to left on the last corner of the last lap. We get up into P4 and get back to where we were before our mistake. But Yuki Tsunoda wins his second race in Formula 1. Remember, he won in the AlphaTauri in Season 3, and he wins for the first time in the senior Red Bull Honda team today, ahead of Norris and Leclerc on the podium.
It It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
Red Bull come good in this season, and it's Tsunoda the one on the top step, not Albon, surprisingly, after a high-profile error. I mean, I can't speak too much, though, because we made one ourselves, and in the end, that mistake of ours actually took Albon out of the race, but... yeah, very, very messy Bahrain Grand Prix for a few people, but Red Bull come through. Tsunoda is the man of the hour ahead of Lando Norris and Leclerc. Leclerc doing a very solid job there. That's a very promising result for Mercedes to get off the mark properly with their first podium of the season. And for us, I mean, it's a very good recovery in both senses, from where we were on the start of the grid and also from that mistake on the soft tyres coming through for us. But, you know, mixed fortunes for a lot of other drivers, including our teammate, Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, it's a day to forget for those two. Piastri had a DNF with an engine failure actually earlier on in the race for Ferrari. So, yeah, in terms of the championship, then it means myself and Lando Norris pull away a little bit from the others right now in this early stage, but it's only round 3, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself of who we're fighting for the title or whatever. But right now, myself and Lando being the two most consistent drivers of the season so far. Kind of weird to say after the mistakes I made this race weekend, but you know, the final result speaks for itself. But the two Red Bulls behind, chasing after us for sure. In the constructors, it's very close between McLaren and Red Bull, and then also us two Audi teams of Audi Sport and Martini Audi AAR. Renault and Mercedes climb back above Ferrari, and Ferrari go down the order, with Andretti scoring again with Fernando Alonso. Must be pointed out, Alonso getting another couple of points there for Andretti, showing what he can do in an inferior car. So that'll be a close battle, I guess, between Aston Martin, Andretti, and the teams below, it seems like it. But what a crazy Bahrain race. It wasn't the season opener, but it was still just as mad, showing this track is just that good on this game, I guess. If you guys did enjoy it, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.